Arrogant relatives demanded that I give them my child as a gift. I pretended to agree, but then I humiliated them and exposed them on social media. So, here is something wild. Sil, that spoiled hurricane of a human being, actually demanded that I gift her my baby for her 30th birthday. No, you're not misreading that. She literally expected me to hand over my child like it was a purse or a poodle. I pretended to play along just to keep things calm, but in reality, I was planning to embarrass the hell out of her. And I did. Live. On social media. Yep, I exposed her ridiculousness in front of everyone. Her entitlement, her childish mindset, it all got aired out. Honestly, I don't even know if anyone else has ever been through something like this. I mean, who would even believe it? Just typing this makes me feel like I'm describing a plot from a terrible soap opera. Let me back it up a bit. This whole mess revolves around two key people in my life, Mel and Sil. Sil's the brat, just so we're clear. She's 29, single, and acts like the world owes her everything just because she exists. Now, don't get me wrong, being 29 and single is not the issue here. The real problem is that she's this entitled little tornado who flat out refuses to hear the word no. Ever. I, on the other hand, am 37, married to my husband, he's 40, and we've been doing this marriage thing for a solid 12 years. We've got 2 kids, a 9-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. Our marriage is pretty solid, knock on wood. But my life is not all roses. Nope. My biggest headache is my drama queen of a mother-in-law, Mel, and her princess of a daughter, Sil. Before I go any further, I need to sketch out what these women are like. Picture those women in rich people TV shows. You know, the ones who spend half their day at spas and nail salons, and the rest at cocktail bars, trash-talking each other while sipping overpriced drinks. That's them. Social butterflies with nothing real to do. Lost in their own glittery version of reality. They don't work. Not even pretend to. Their full-time gig is shopping, gossiping, and living off someone else's bank account. And that someone is Phil. Phil, Mel's husband, Sil's dad, is basically an ATM with a pulse. You'd think he'd put his foot down, but no. The guy is barely even present in the household. There's even a rumor floating around that he has a mistress and that Mel knows about it. Honestly, that rumor makes perfect sense. It explains why Mel lets him do his thing while she and Sil bleed him dry without question. Sounds like an unspoken arrangement, if you ask me. Whether the rumor's true or not, I can't say for sure. But based on how Phil operates, I wouldn't be surprised. No sane man would just silently tolerate Mel and Sil's circus unless he had something to gain from it. Now, let's get back to the moment this madness started creeping into my already stressful life. Last week, out of the blue, Mel calls me and invites me to lunch. And get this, it's on a Wednesday afternoon. Who does that? My gut reaction was to say no outright, but since it had been a while since she actually showed interest in seeing me, I decided to be diplomatic. I suggested dinner instead, more convenient for me. But of course, dinner is prime time for these women. That's when they're busy at gaming parlors with their squad of fellow socialites. So after some back and forth, we settle on Saturday afternoon. I show up in my usual, comfy weekend outfit. Mel walks in dressed like she's heading to a nightclub in Vegas. A sparkly black dress that could blind a person in daylight. It was lunchtime, not a red carpet event. And, as expected, she wastes no time throwing shade at my wardrobe. No hi. No, how are you? Just straight into criticism. Typical Mel. We go through the usual fake chit-chat, and then she hits me with it. Asks what we're planning to get Sil for her 30th birthday. I blinked in confusion because, wasn't her 29th just a couple of months ago? I told her exactly that. Sil's next birthday is still 10 months out. But Mel just laughed it off and said, that's why we need to start planning now. Then she reminds me of the so-called disaster that was Sil's last birthday. Apparently, she was devastated over the gifts we gave. Oh yeah, because nothing says tragedy like receiving a completely fine $250 dress instead of some premium Zara outfit with a sapphire necklace to match. I rolled my eyes so hard I saw last week. And then came the real kicker. Mel told me she'd already come up with the perfect gift idea. Something that would keep Sil from getting upset again. Something unforgettable. What was it, you ask? A baby. No joke. She actually said we should gift Sil a baby. As in me, pushing out a whole human being for her spoiled daughter. I was speechless, stunned. Who even thinks like that? I mean, seriously, how could any sane person even begin to imagine asking for a baby as a gift? I sat there, blinking, trying to wrap my head around what I just heard. I thought maybe I misheard her, so I asked her again and again. But no, she was dead serious. She looked me in the eye and said, plain as day, yes, I want you to have a baby and give it to Stacy for her 30th birthday. At that point, I completely lost it. I asked her flat out, why in the world would you think I'd ever do something like that? And she had the nerve to shout back, because you owe her. You messed up her birthday this year with that cheap gift. That's when I stood up, heart pounding, and told her I didn't owe a single soul a damn thing. Especially not someone who expected me to grow a baby and hand it over like a party favor. I'm not a broodmare. I'm not some incubator to be used and tossed aside. Without another word, I stormed out of the restaurant, trying to keep my head from exploding. I had to calm myself down, so I went straight to pick up my son from his friend's place before heading home. As soon as I walked through the door, my husband was waiting, looking a little puzzled. He asked what had gone down between me and Mel. I looked at him sideways and asked what kind of story he'd been fed this time. He knows how Mel and Sil are always over the top and delusional, so he never really buys into their drama. He told me Mel had called him, said she'd suggested a birthday present for Stacy and that I had flat out refused, which apparently hurt her feelings. I stared at him and said, yeah, you want to know what that gift was? Your child. She wants your kid to be handed over to your sister like she's asking for a puppy. At first, he just burst out laughing like I was joking or telling some twisted story to blow off steam. He was literally rolling with laughter until I laid out the entire conversation, word for word. That's when his smile dropped. He looked at me, eyes wide, and said, what the hell is she even smoking? That was pretty much my exact question, too. I told him straight up, there is absolutely no universe where I would agree to something so deranged. He nodded, calmed me down, and reassured me that we were 100% on the same page. No more kids, and definitely no kids being handed over to Princess Stacy. Sunday rolled around, and we were just enjoying a lazy day on the couch, finally getting a moment to breathe and relax. Then, without warning, Mel showed up at our door. I was drained, completely over it. I told her I was exhausted and started heading to the bedroom to avoid the circus altogether. But she stopped me and said she came to apologize. That got my attention. For a second, I thought, wow, maybe she finally snapped out her fantasy bubble. She said she was sorry for not giving me enough context the other day and asked if I could just listen to her for a minute. I thought, okay, maybe there's something more reasonable coming. Then she launched into this whole emotional monologue. She said Stacy's going to be 30 next year and has been single for far too long, and apparently it's driving her crazy. Her brilliant solution? A baby. As if that would somehow soothe all of Stacy's emotional instability and fill the gaping void in her life. I just sat there thinking, what is she even saying? A baby is not some light-up toy you hand to a restless toddler. A baby is a full-blown human being, not some cotton candy meant to distract a grown woman from her existential crisis. If Stacy's really looking for meaning or a distraction, maybe she should try getting a job. Like the rest of us adults do. But of course not. Our Royal Highness doesn't do jobs. She doesn't even help around the house. Still lives with my in-laws, by the way. Doesn't earn a dime, doesn't clean a dish, doesn't touch laundry because heaven forbid her nails get chipped. You'd think she was allergic to adult responsibilities. And if you ever met her, you'd swear her brain got stuck in a time capsule around her 14th birthday. Her room is still splashed in pink paint, and she has more pink clothes than a Barbie warehouse. She couldn't tell you who the president is or what country we're in. All she knows is that money magically appears on her card, and she gets to spend it like she's playing a real-life video game. So I said to Mel, plain and simple, if Stacy wants a baby so badly, why doesn't she adopt one? And you know what Mel said? She actually laughed and told me, oh, don't be lazy. Lazy. Because not birthing a human child for her daughter's entertainment is apparently me being lazy now. Mel looked at me with that overly familiar smug expression and said, well, it's been a while since you were last pregnant. Time to get the machinery working again. Can you believe that? She seriously referred to my body like it was some dusty piece of equipment needing a tune-up. She kept going, saying how adopted children were a gamble, because, her words, you never know what kind of diseases run in their bloodline. But us? We're apparently the safe option, the premium baby producers. Then she actually had the audacity to ask, "Can't you do this one thing for your lil sil?" At that point, I looked over at my husband, silently begging him to please say something, anything, before I lost my last ounce of patience. He chuckled at first and said, "Mom, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." He told her I was already juggling motherhood and my career and had enough on my plate without being expected to produce another child on demand. Then, just to hammer in how insane this all was, he added, "Besides, it'd be pretty weird to say Stacy's brother is also the father of her child." And you know what Mel said? Without even blinking, she replied, "Why not? Maria's daughter-in-law carried a baby from Maria's daughter too." I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "Wait a second," I said. "That was surrogacy. Maria's daughter physically couldn't carry a child, so her daughter-in-law stepped in. That was a medical necessity. But this wasn't about infertility or compassion. This was a deranged birthday wish list. They weren't asking us to help in a time of need. They were treating us like some sort of human vending machine. Push a button, pop out a baby. I told her straight, if Stacy had any real condition that prevented her from having kids, then maybe we'd consider helping. But this wasn't that. This was entitlement in its most absurd form. My husband then calmly suggested that maybe Stacy should, go out, meet someone, fall in love, and start her own family like a normal adult instead of throwing tantrums and dragging us in her mess. That's when Mel started crying. Big dramatic sobs like we just crushed her soul. She said her little girl had tried so hard to find the right man, but you know how awful men are these days. Then she turned to me, tears still rolling, and said, "You're lucky to have my son, darling. Not everyone gets so lucky." She kept going, telling us that Stacy had high standards and couldn't just be with any man. Apparently, whoever ends up with her needs to treat her like royalty, just like they do. I couldn't help myself. I muttered, "Oh yeah, like that guy she dumped because he didn't buy her that overpriced Gucci bag she threw a tantrum over." Mel, of course, jumped in to defend her spoiled princess, trying to explain away her behavior like she always does. That's when I had enough. I stood up and said I felt nauseated by the entire conversation and needed to lie down. And before heading to my room, I reminded her, loud and clear, that there was no way in hell we were having a child to wrap up in ribbons and gift to Stacy for her birthday. A little while later, my husband came into the bedroom. He curled up beside me and tried to calm me down, even cracked a few jokes to lift my mood. I asked him what he said to his mom after I left. He told me he'd laid it out for her, crystal clear. No more babies, no more pressure, no more weird demands. And apparently, Mel didn't take it well. She stormed out of the house in one of her dramatic flares. Evil witch. Honestly, can you even begin to imagine the kind of ridiculous situation I'm in? Some days I want to bang my head against a wall. Other days I want to bang their heads and hope something rattles loose in there. Update 1. Hey, everyone. First off, thank you so much for engaging with my post. Some of your comments? Absolutely priceless. I laughed so hard I nearly cried. And yeah, you're all spot on. Stacy is 100% not right in the head. I've felt that way for a while now, honestly. And Mel? Probably just as bad. Maybe worse. I swear, they need to get their brains scanned, though good luck finding them under all that makeup. Now, if they were even halfway normal, I figured they would have dropped the whole baby talk after the last conversation. But nope. I guess crazy runs deep in that bloodline. Up until now, it was mostly Mel pushing the madness, but guess what? Stacy decided to get involved too. Let me tell you, dealing with Stacy directly is 10 times worse. She doesn't do logic. She lives on a different planet. As I mentioned before, Mel had already ruined my Sunday last week with that unhinged baby pitch. And then, just when I thought I could breathe, bam. The very next Sunday, they were back. This time, Mel didn't come alone. She brought her precious little doll along with her. IT honestly felt like they had made it their mission to wreck my day off. I swear, it was like some pact had been signed in hell. Stacy walked in wearing a flowy skirt and a soft blouse. Honestly, the first time I'd ever seen her in something that didn't look like it came straight off a teenager's Instagram page. But of course, her hair was styled to perfection, and her nails were gleaming like she was heading to a photo shoot. Then Mel, never one to waste a second, chirped, "Do you see? Stacy's already dressing like a mommy." And just like that, it all clicked. This whole outfit was part of their delusional baby mama transformation plan. I mean, seriously? Do they actually think that slipping into a modest outfit magically prepares someone for motherhood? Like, change your clothes and boom, you're a mom now. Stacy smirked at me and, with that typical smug tone, said, "I'm perfect at everything I do." Then she ran up and wrapped herself around my husband like she hadn't seen him in years. It was all overly dramatic, typical Stacy, acting like a squealing 14-year-old at a sleepover. She yelled across the room, like she was on a stage, "So, when's the good news coming?" My husband just blinked at her and asked what she was even talking about. Playing dumb, thankfully, but she just grinned and said, "I know you're planning to surprise me with a baby on my 30th birthday. But Mom spilled the beans, so now I know. I'm so excited to be a mommy of a little girl. I've already started buying baby stuff." That was when my husband cut her off. Thank God, because I was this close to losing it and planting my hand on her forehead. He said clearly, "That's not happening. We're not having another baby, and we're definitely not giving one away." And would you believe it? Stacy still thought he was lying. She thought he was trying to keep the surprise under wraps. She smiled like a lunatic who just solved a mystery. That's how deep her delusions go. But when it finally dawned on her that there really was no baby gift coming her way, she exploded, started screaming at me. "Why not? You've always been cruel to me. This is your chance to finally make it up to me." Like what? Make what up? I'm not a Build-A-Baby factory here to fill her emotional void. She practically begged, "Come on, just give me a cute little baby doll." I couldn't take it anymore. I said, "Stacy, this isn't Amazon. We don't run a baby supply store where you place an order for a girl and we deliver her in gift wrap." Then she switched gears, lowered her voice, and tried to sound all soft and wounded. She said, "You know, I've always dreamed of having a baby girl. I have so much love to give, and now you're all just depriving me of the chance to share it. That baby would be the luckiest child to have me as a mother. I'd raise her to be confident, successful. You'd all be so proud of me." And there it was, another speech from Planet Stacy. And you know what? This is why I keep telling people, it's pointless to try reasoning with her. She lives in a fantasy world built on glitter and entitlement. First of all, does she even realize that I have no control over the baby's gender? What does she think this is, a lipstick palette where you get to pick shades? Second, let's be real. This woman has never held a baby for more than 3 seconds. Back when my kids were infants, she'd literally shoo them away like they were flies, terrified they'd ruin her outfit or smudge her makeup. Even now, she won't let my daughter come near her for fear she'll mess up her nails. And I'm supposed to believe she's going to wake up at 3 a.m. to change diapers? She can't even boil water without chipping a nail. Besides, let's not forget, I'll be the one going through 9 months of pregnancy, the body aches, the cravings, the hormonal chaos, the literal childbirth, just to hand over my baby to this overgrown child so she can raise a mini version of herself? Not happening. Not in this life. Not in the next. She was still babbling about how great a mom she'd be, but by then, I'd tuned her out completely. My head was spinning with all the reasons why this was the worst idea in the history of bad ideas. And then I snapped. I stood up and said, "Stacy, listen. I know you're going to hate me for this. Actually, you already hate me, so it doesn't even matter anymore. Let me make it loud and clear. I'm not having a baby for you. Do you understand that, or should I write it down for you in big, bold letters? Because clearly, you and your mother are struggling with basic hearing and basic common sense." My husband tried to calm me down with a little hand gesture, but I was past the point of caring. I told them I was done with the discussion, done with the demands, done being polite. And if they brought this up again, they'd find themselves permanently banned from my house. Then I walked off and slammed the bedroom door behind me. Maybe I crossed some imaginary line. Maybe I said too much, but honestly, look at them. The amount of delusion and toxicity they bring into my life. There are no words strong enough for it. After I shut that door, my husband tried to gently nudge me, said I might have been a little too outspoken. But honestly, I was so fed up with everyone's nonsense, he didn't dare push it. He backed off fast. All he said was that his mom and sister had left, calling him a simp before they stormed out. Let them call him whatever they want. I couldn't care less. At this point, I need him to stop playing nice guy to everyone and start drawing some lines. That Sunday, I was mentally prepared for round 3, expecting more madness to show up my doorstep. But to my surprise, it was dead silent, peaceful, and I wanted to keep it that way. I actually had hoped this ridiculous circus had finally packed up and left town. Update 2. Oh, how naive of me to believe the silence meant it was over. Turns out, the calm was just the eye of the storm. For 2 whole weeks, our house was blissfully quiet. No unexpected visitors, no screaming matches, no wardrobe-to-motherhood conversations. I felt like I could breathe again. But, as I soon found out, it wasn't quiet everywhere. While I was enjoying the silence, all hell was breaking loose online. And I had no idea. Apparently, Stacy had taken her pity party to social media and turned it into a full-blown hate campaign against me. According to her, I was the monster who ripped away her only chance at motherhood. Let me explain. Stacy calls herself a beauty guru online. She posts makeup tutorials and does all those get ready with me reels. She's built up a decent little following, mostly people who don't know her in real life, and clearly never will. I don't spend much time online because, unlike her, I have a life beyond filters. 2 kids, a job, actual responsibilities, you get the picture. Anyway, she told her audience that my husband was fully on board with the idea of having a baby for her, but I was the cold-hearted villain who refused. She spun this whole sob story, claiming that she'd always dreamed of being a mother, but since she was single, adoption hadn't worked out. Yeah, sure, that's rich. They've never tried to adopt, not once. And let's be honest, even if they had, she'd never make it through the interview process. Can you imagine her explaining her daily schedule of spa visits, gossip sessions, and zero income? No agency would touch that with a 10-foot pole. She went on, painting me as this bitter, narrow-minded woman stuck in the past, saying I didn't want to give her a baby simply because she's unmarried. Apparently, I'm the poster child for conservative oppression. Truth is, I was denying the baby because she's an idiot, but I guess that wouldn't fit her narrative. I only found out about this public smear campaign when my husband's aunt called me out of the blue, asking why I was being so cruel to poor little Stacy. That's when I opened social media and saw the mess. And wow, it was actually kind of hilarious. The things her clueless followers and nosy relatives were saying about me. You'd think I was Cruella de Vil's evil twin. It was comical, if it weren't so infuriating. But even if what she claimed was true, I still had every right to say no. It's my body, my decision, not up for debate. My husband told me to ignore it all, said it had passed like a bad season. And for a moment, I tried. But let's be real. How can anyone not read a public post where they're getting roasted by the internet? I may have thick skin, but I'm not made of steel. I realized that by staying quiet, I was giving her room to twist the story even further. And she was using my silence as ammo. That's when I sat down with my friends, and we cooked up a little plan, a plan to give Stacy a taste of her own medicine. I picked up the phone and called her. I said I was very concerned about the online campaign she was running against me. Told her the negativity was damaging my reputation and causing unnecessary drama. And then I gave her what she wanted. I said I was considering having a child for her. Yep, I said it. Not because I'm in it, but because it would stroke her ego just enough to reel her in. Look, I don't give a damn about her or her little internet fan club. But it was time to flip the script. She's been a thorn in my side for way too long. I told her I wanted to meet and talk things over in person, just to sort through the details. The moment she heard that, you'd think she won the lottery. She was over the moon, convinced she'd won. When she showed up at my house, I greeted her with a fake smile and said, "Since I've agreed to your demand, why don't we go live and announce it together? You'll get a ton of engagement, and I'll finally be able to clear my name." She lit up like a Christmas tree, absolutely glowing with pride. She really thought she'd beaten me. "Oh, sweetheart, You're in for a ride. Now, given that Stacy lives for social media, she jumped at the chance to go live. No hesitation at all. She was thrilled. We started the live stream, and I cheerfully announced, I've finally agreed to have a baby for Stacy. So let's hear from the future mom herself. She was glowing with triumph, basking in her imagined victory, completely unaware of the trap she'd just walked into. So I asked her as innocently as possible, Stacy, what are your plans for the baby? She giggled like a schoolgirl and launched into her fantasy monologue. I'm so excited to be a mama to a baby girl, she squealed. I've already started shopping for her. She's going to look like a total star from the moment she's born. She'll never be seen without makeup. I want her to always be perfect and presentable. I didn't even bother correcting her on the whole gender assumption thing. Let the audience handle that. And oh, did they? The comments came in fast. Viewers were shocked, offended, and appalled. But Stacy was too wrapped up in her glittery dream to notice the backlash pouring in. I kept the questions coming. That's sweet, Stacy. But what about when the baby gets fussy and cries? How will you handle those moments? She tilted her head and said, Girls in our family don't cry, do they? I've never seen your daughter cry. She's always so clean and calm. I smiled politely and replied, That's because you've only seen her for a total of, 15 minutes? All babies cry. And keeping a baby clean and calm takes hours of work. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. Her answer? Well, you can deal with all the crying. Once she's done, I'll dress her up in cute frilly outfits with matching tiaras and jewelry. And, of course, makeup. That's when I lost it. I couldn't hold back anymore. I laughed out loud and said, So let me get this straight. You want me to deal with the baby when she's crying, and once she's settled, you'll take over for a photo op? She clapped her hands and said, Exactly. Why not? Oh my God. The pure delusion. I gave a slow, evil chuckle. At that point, I didn't even care if she figured out what I was doing. She narrowed her eyes and snapped. You're just trying to scare me off, aren't you? I replied, How hard can it be? You've done it. I can do it too. I'm way better than you anyway. I've got more followers, and let's face it, I dress way better. That's when she realized the tide was turning. Without saying another word, she angrily ended the live stream. She was fuming. She accused me of humiliating her live, completely unaware of the social train wreck she had just broadcasted. She still insisted we were going through with the baby plan. I just smiled, completely unfazed. After she stormed out, I reached out to my friend, who had thankfully recorded the entire live session. I sat down and typed out a detailed post, laying everything out, every creepy demand, every ridiculous statement, and every red flag that proved beyond doubt that Stacy should never be trusted with a child. I didn't hold back. I exposed how she and Mel had been pressuring me for months to have a baby and gift it to Stacy for her birthday, like it was a designer handbag. I carefully highlighted Stacy's answers from the live session, her obsession with makeup, her cluelessness about child-rearing, her complete lack of emotional maturity. I even added details that didn't make it into the live, but needed to be heard. It was time the world saw her unfiltered. Then I tagged her. I scheduled the post to go live at midnight, right after the self-proclaimed princess had gone to sleep. I knew she wouldn't be awake to stop it, and by the time she logged in the next day, the internet would have already feasted on it. And oh, did it blow up. Thanks to Stacy's own follower base, my post spread like wildfire. Tagging her was the key. People started trolling her in the comments, absolutely tearing her apart. The backlash was brutal. One comment said, Forget being a mom. This woman shouldn't even be allowed to roam free on the streets. And honestly, I didn't feel the slightest bit bad. She lit the fire. I just handed her the match. After the internet exploded with that live video and my midnight post, guess who decided to call me? Mel. But the moment I picked up, I didn't let her get a single word out. I calmly said, Before you say anything, I just want you to know this call is being recorded, and I won't hesitate to post it publicly if you try to pull anything. And just like that, click, she hung up. She hasn't called back since. Neither has the princess herself. I made it very clear in that one call with Mel. From now on, every conversation, every text, every doorstep ambush, everything would be documented. And if they so much as breathe drama near my house again, I'd have it all on record. That was enough to finally shut them down. And let me tell you, it felt so good. Like finally scratching that itch you couldn't reach for weeks. My husband and I still scroll through the comment section under Stacy's video just for laughs. The trolls really went to town on her, and I'm not even mad about it. Honestly, some of them were funnier than anything I could have come up with myself. Now let's shift gears. Story 2. Caught my girlfriend cheating with my cousin. Let me take you back to where this mess began. My girlfriend and I had been together for 3 years. 3 solid years of what I thought was love, commitment, and plans for the future. I genuinely believed she was the one. I even had ideas about proposing. I was all in, but then it all went up in flames. She cheated on me with my cousin. We met at a nightclub 3 years ago. She stood out from the crowd. Absolutely stunning, the kind of woman that made heads turn the second she walked in. I honestly didn't think I had a shot, but something told me to shoot mine anyway. To my surprise, she actually gave me her number. We went out the very next day, and from there, things took off fast. About 1.5 years into our relationship, she moved in with me. It felt right at the time. I didn't second-guess it. I was in love. Deeply. The kind of love that makes you ignore every red flag waving right in your face. Around the same time, my cousin, who had been living down south, got a job offer in New York where I live. He was moving up and needed help finding a place. So, I pulled some strings with my building manager and got him set up with a decent apartment nearby. I was thrilled. He and I had always been close. We grew up like brothers, played games together, talked about everything. I thought it'd be great having him close again. After he got settled, we started hanging out often. He'd come over to my place, especially since I had a solid gaming setup. We'd play for hours, like the old days. And every now and then, he'd make these little comments about how attractive my girlfriend was. I brushed it off. He was family. I never imagined he'd actually make a move on her. I mean, yeah, he said she was hot, but who wouldn't say that? I'd even agree with him, not thinking anything of it. I never saw anything weird when we were all in the same room. She didn't flirt. He didn't linger. They didn't sit close or act suspicious. Everything seemed normal. Too normal, apparently. Fast forward a few months. I was out for coffee one day, planning to catch up with one of my old college buddies. It was supposed to just be the two of us, but he brought someone along, his new girlfriend. I was surprised, not because he showed up with a +1, but because I knew this girl. She was one of my girlfriend's work friends. We had actually tried setting them up once at a house party, but it didn't seem like it went anywhere. Turns out, they'd quietly been dating all along and were just keeping things under the radar. I thought it was hilarious, small world stuff. I figured my girlfriend would be thrilled to hear the news since she'd been the one to introduce them. So I texted her, "Hey, you should come to the cafe. There's a little surprise here for you." She texted back a few minutes later, saying she couldn't. She was hanging out with that very same friend who was sitting directly across from me at the table. That's when my stomach dropped. At that point, it was obvious she had lied to me. What I couldn't figure out was why. Why go out of her way to tell me she was with a friend who was actually sitting right across from me? I didn't want to raise suspicion too early, so I covered for her. I told my friends that she'd texted me, saying she had a migraine and needed some medicine, so I'd better run home and check on her. They nodded, and I left the cafe with a sick feeling building in my gut. When I got to the apartment, she wasn't there, but there were signs she had been. Makeup was scattered across the bed, and a few outfits were laid out like she'd been trying them on. My mind was racing. Something felt off, really off, and I needed to talk to someone. Fast. So I walked down the hallway to my cousin's place. I could hear loud music thumping from behind the door. I knocked and waited. There was some frantic shuffling, a pause, and then the door finally cracked open. My cousin popped his head out, trying to look casual. He gave me a quick laugh and said he had company and that he'd swing by later. At that moment, I didn't suspect anything. I didn't connect the dots. He was my cousin, after all. I didn't think he was capable of doing something like this. But just before he closed the door, something caught my eye. Draped over the arm of the couch, behind him, was a shirt I'd bought my girlfriend for her birthday. A pale blue, off-shoulder top. I knew it like the back of my hand. I even remembered wrapping it. My stomach clenched. I nodded slowly, said nothing, and headed back to my apartment. Once I was inside, I started pacing. My hands were shaking. My heart was hammering. I didn't want to believe what I already knew, but I had to see for myself. I sat down at her laptop, opened it, and pulled up her Facebook. Her messages weren't locked or hidden, and that's when it all came crashing down. Right there in black and white, I saw everything. It started with a message from my cousin. He asked her what she saw in me, what it was about me that she liked. She replied that I was funny, had a good personality. I wanted to believe that counted for something, but then came his message. He told her I wasn't her type. And worse, he told her he was. And she didn't disagree. The messages that followed were flirty, way beyond harmless. Then came that message. She told him she had just stepped out of the shower. Classic move. The next few messages were full of sexual undertones. Then came photos, some of her, some of him, nothing left to the imagination. Every line, every image hit me like a punch to the chest. Earlier that same day, before I had even invited her to the cafe, he had texted her saying he couldn't stop thinking about her, that he needed to see her. He begged her to come up with an excuse to come to his apartment. And she did. Right there, I knew it was over. There was no coming back from this. Not for her, and definitely not for him. My relationship was dead, and so was any bond one ever thought I had with my cousin. But I wasn't going to let this betrayal go quietly. I wasn't going to let them rewrite the story or gaslight me into doubt. So I started taking screenshots of every single message, every photo, every line of flirtation, every proof of their affair. I emailed it all to myself, made copies, backed it up. Because if she tried to lie, I'd have the truth locked and loaded. Thankfully, I had one thing going for me. My name was on the lease. Since she had moved into my apartment, I had full legal rights. If nothing else, that meant I could kick her out without complications. She came back a few hours later, acting like it was just another day. I didn't waste time. The moment she stepped inside, I told her to pack up and get out. She looked stunned, completely confused, but I didn't let her fake innocence play out. I laid it out clear. I knew everything about her and my cousin. And if she didn't leave the apartment voluntarily, I'd have no problem filing a formal complaint. Then I grabbed a bag and left for the night. I told her she had 48 hours to be gone. While I was out, my phone blew up. She called. My cousin called. Both of them left dozens of messages, apologies, explanations, maybe even lies. I didn't listen to a single one. Every call went straight to voicemail. I had no interest in their excuses. Instead, I focused on letting the truth come out. I pulled together a group chat with all of my relatives and told them the full story. No sugarcoating, no drama, just facts. I explained how my cousin had betrayed me, how he'd gone behind my back and hooked up with a woman I was planning to marry. Their reactions were everything I hoped for, and more. Disappointment, shock, embarrassment. Even his parents were in the chat, and they apologized to me over and over, even though none of this was their fault. They were horrified by what he'd done. Soon after, I got a flurry of texts from my cousin. He was fuming, calling me a coward, accusing me of turning the family against him. Apparently, people had been messaging him directly, calling him out for being a lowlife. I didn't even reply, because let's be honest, he was a scumbag, and everyone finally saw it. Then I turned to our mutual friend group. My ex and I had shared a lot of the same friends, so I made another group chat and told them what happened. I laid out the facts, just like I had with my family. They were floored. No one had seen it coming. And, thankfully, they all backed me. 100%. While we were talking, a couple of the girls messaged me privately. They told me my ex had already started reaching out to people, asking if she could crash at their places for a while. They said they felt bad, but they turned her down. They couldn't support what she did. She had burned that bridge the moment she crossed the line. 2 days passed. When I returned to the apartment, she was gone. Her things were cleared out, and she hadn't left a note or any kind of message. I didn't know where she'd gone, and honestly, I didn't care much. But eventually, word got around. She had ended up staying with my cousin. Of course. But that arrangement didn't last long. From what I heard, their personalities clashed pretty quickly. No surprise there, and he kicked her out after a week. 1 week. That's all it took before the fairy tale imploded. After that, she disappeared from everyone's radar. I don't know where she went, and I've never really cared to find out. She vanished just like that. If there's one thing I learned from this whole nightmare, it's that trust isn't something you hand out freely. not to lovers, and not even to family, because sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding the knife.